Hello friends, welcome. Friends, on 18th of June 2025, Vodafone Idea and AST SpaceMobile announced a partnership. The idea is to roll out broadband and voice and SMS capability on commercial mobile phones. So it is not an FWA partnership, it is to roll out on commercial mobile phones. I explained in this video that how this partnership cannot be executed without a lot of regulatory framework being placed by both DOT and TRI, which is currently absent. Now, friends, the purpose of this video is to not expand the discussion which I already had in this video. So anybody who is interested can look into this video. I'm going to paste the link of this video in the description and you can watch this video. Today's video is a little different. Today's video talks about that how satellites will be able to enable broadband and voice and SMS connectivity similar to what terrestrial networks are providing to commercial mobile phones, and how AST's capability is different from Starlink satellites, which are also, some of those Starlink satellites also are targeted towards commercial mobile phone. Not all, because Starlink's major focus is to provide an FWA-like service, which is to provide broadband connectivity with rooftop terminals, which we are already aware of. But Starlink is also looking towards providing commercial grade connectivity on mobile phones to expand the coverage of mobile network beyond which the terrestrial networks are incapable of offering commercial coverage, because there could be some areas like mountains, forests, etc., where commercial coverage is not possible. So both AST and Starlink is focused in empowering commercial mobile phones in areas where there is no terrestrial connectivity. So today we are going to compare both Starlink and AST, which one is better and why. That's the whole purpose of this video. So AST versus Starlink, who wins the direct-to-mobile race? Because it's all about direct-to-mobile. It has got nothing to do with broadband, right? FWA. AST is not in the race of providing broadband connectivity using a rooftop terminal. The idea is to empower the mobile phones with cellular-like service where there are no cellular coverage. So as the Vodafone tie-ups with AST SpaceMobile, we compare the model with Starlink, focused on mobile capability, performance, and regulatory scalability and challenges ahead. That's the whole purpose of this presentation. So friends, if you look at this, AST SpaceMobile, a US-based company, built around direct-to-smartphone connectivity. It uses licensed spectrum of the operators, because AST is already tied up with a lot of operators worldwide. And they are using the same spectrum which I mentioned in my earlier video, which is the IMT spectrum, like 3G, 4G, 5G, the same spectrum where the mobile services are being provided. Same spectrum is used for expanding the coverage of mobile network, right? And it has to tie up with the mobile operator on ground to able to use their spectrum. It does not have exclusive spectrum like Starlink is going to have for their FWA type of terminals, okay? Functions as space-based tower using large antennas. Now, this is critical. I'm going to show you that how AST is different from Starlink and why this large antenna plays a very, very significant role. Therefore, if you look at the AST's performance from a data throughput point of view compared to Starlink, you will find AST is much, much more capable compared to Starlink. And the main reason is this large antenna. Focus on coverage on mobile, dead zone, and rural region. Starlink optimized for fixed broadband via dish terminal. So this is the primary service which Starlink is offering. It is using Ku, Ka, V-band satellite spectrum and has commercial agreement with T-Mobile to have their generation 2 satellites. I am going to show you the picture to provide supplementary coverage from space, right? That's called satellite to cell. It is actually not satellite to cell, it's direct to cell, supplementary coverage from space. I think this has been missed. The abbreviation is wrong here. Focus on mass scale broadband capacity, right? Because Starlink wants more volume. SpaceMobile, the number of satellites are limited. right? So that's the difference, because you really don't need so much amount of capacity in areas there when the population density is less. So it serves the purpose. Starlink is focused on broadband connectivity. Therefore, for Starlink, capacity for those broadband supplied satellites are crucial, because you are talking about hundreds of MB of download speed, and that too on a population density which is pretty large. Now, download and upload speed of both the operators. One is SpaceMobile, that is AST SpaceMobile, and Starlink. So if you see, both are using targeted device for supplementary coverage from space is unmodified smartphone, friends. There is no need to make any change in the existing smartphone. It will be capable of receiving the signals from the space. Download speed, now this is what is important, 10 to 20 Mbps per beam shared. Here it is very, very less. It can go, let's say, more than 4 MB. It can't match the download speed of AST Mobile, and I'll tell you the reason why. Upload speeds are also low in case of AST Mobile, because the limitation is not the satellite but the mobile phone. And let me explain to you why the upload speeds are going to always be limited. It can't match the download speed, because when the download speed, the satellite has large antennas and therefore it can pump large power. Mobile phone is limited by the regulatory constraint of causing harm to the human being, electromagnetic interference, electromagnetic radio waves, which is we call it EMF, and those RF signal can cause harm to the human being, and therefore they are limited from a transmission power point of view. And since they are limited and they transmit typically 23 dBm, it is just barely able to reach the terrestrial tower, which is just located 5 kilometers away. Now think of a satellite which is located around 500 to 700 kilometers away from the surface of the Earth. How much power loss it will happen as it reaches the satellite? And that is why the throughput, as far as upload speeds are concerned, is going to be pretty low, because of this power limitation of the commercial handset, because of the regulatory constraint that you can't transmit high power. Okay. Spectrum use is going to be all commercial spectrum. It can be 700, it can be 800, 900, 1800, 2100, all commercial spectrum. Starlink has already used the USPCS spectrum and it has tied up with T-Mobile. Right? Now let me just take you to the website. Why AST performs better in mobile compared to Starlink? For that, friends, I am going to show you a video. Right? So it will be very interesting to look at this video. So let me just run this video for you. Right? So this is the video, friends. This is AST Mobile company. This is this is a commercial video, friend, which is right there in the website, and I'll paste the link of video in the description. These are the antenna, right? Look at these antennas, not direct antennas. I'm going to just do a little bit of. This is launched, satellite is launched. Now this is we call it Blue Walker 3 satellite, and you will see how it looks. Yes, amazing it looks, right? Look at this. Look at this. The antenna is expanding, and look at the size of this antenna. It's huge, in the sky. Because of the size of the antenna, the satellite is able to drive huge amount of gain, and that's why the download speeds are pretty high. Look at this. This is how it looks, right? So I'll just stop this video here. And then I'm going to show you how Starlink satellites look. Now, this is the website of Starlink. And if you go down below, let me just show you. Yeah. So this is actually, I was already on the top page. So if you go down below, you will see that this is how it looks. So you can't compare. This is not to scale. But definitely, these satellites do not have the antenna sizes at par with what AST has. So what AST has been able to do is that they have been able to innovate on the antenna design, because it is very difficult to launch these satellites, and these satellites has to be unpack and unfold in sky to able to have antennas which are extremely, extremely large, because higher the antenna, the better will be the gain of the antenna, and the beam steering capabilities are going to be very, very large. Because what happens, friends, is that when you have low frequency bands, because these are commercial low frequency band, the antenna phase array, because you have to create an array of antenna. There is not one single antenna. There is an array of antenna, and all antennas are working in tandem to steer the beam. Now, if you are at high frequency, the antenna size can be very, very compact because the size of the antenna is proportional to the wavelength. Higher the frequency, shorter is the wavelength. So you can have very compact satellites and you can pack large amount of antenna. But when you are at lower frequency, you can't have compact satellites. You have to have antenna spread out because the wavelength is very, very large. And you still want all the capability of beam steering and doing all kinds of frequency reuse in order to manage interference. And as well as there are a lot of other mechanics which have to be taken into consideration because these are fast moving satellites. So you can imagine the kind of technology that has gone in. And that is why AST performs better in mobile, because of the large phased array antenna, which I showed you in the video, right? Which is huge. It's almost like, in a basketball field. That leads to higher gain. Therefore, stronger downlink and sensitivity uplift. Because this mobile phones, 23 dBm, now the base stations are pretty compact. Now, in order to catch those signals, which will, as it traverses in the sky, because of the inverse square law and a lot of interference in the, in the dust, there will be some kind of, signal loss. The amount of power that will reach the satellite will be so low that you have to have those large antenna to catch those powers. Whereas in case of an FWA, you can transmit at much higher power. Mobile phones, you can't. That is why you need these large antenna arrays to catch those signals. And it will lead to high signal to noise ratio when you are transmitting. And if you have a large antenna gain, you can actually drive large signal ratio. And therefore, you can do higher degree of modulation. You can use 64 QAMs, otherwise you can't. Otherwise, what will happen? The signal will degrade. And you can do dynamic beam forming, which I explained. You need multiple antennas to do beam forming. Otherwise, beams are not going to form. In order to make a beam, large number of antennas are required. And as the frequency goes high, the antenna size is small, and you can actually have compact satellites to do that. So purpose is to build for mobile phones, unlike Starlink, which is repurposing the infrastructure, can support real-time voice, SMS, low bandwidth data without any new hardware. Why Starlink can't replicate AST easily? Now, this is where the problem comes, friends. What AST has done, it has taken the first mover advantage. The problem with AST is, which is going to be as they move forward in time, is that these satellites cause a lot of pollution. Now, what kind of pollution? The pollution is light pollution. Because if the satellites are going to be such huge with such array, they reflect, the sun rays. And those guys who are trying to watch stars, astronomers who are trying to watch, they already are complaining about this Blue Walker 3 satellites causing huge light pollution. So you cannot have large number of satellites. The density of satellites cannot be high. Otherwise, astronomical, scientific, the astronomical discoveries and all the scientific work these people are trying to do, those are going to get impacted. You cannot have. And the other problem is that when you have satellites which are such big, decommissioning those satellites is a big problem. Debris issues are going to have to be managed. And you have to have large power modules to drive those antenna arrays so that the satellite can function and have a lifetime which is good enough for it to justify the launch of those satellites. Smaller satellites are easily manageable. So what Starlink is trying to do is that they are basically looking for volumes. AST is not looking for volumes. They are looking for, let's say, 200, 300 odd satellites, right? But Starlink is looking for a large number of satellites. And therefore, it will be impossible for Starlink to build satellites like that and get regulatory approval for those satellites, okay? That is the reason why. And other thing is that you can't have so many satellites packed into one rocket and launch, because the array size will be so large, it will be impossible. So packing density is going to go down, and therefore launch efficiency is going to reduce, right? And there will be a risk of mechanical failures, because when you have so many satellites, some of the antenna may malfunction and the satellite may get decommissioned automatically. You can't do a control, deorbit of the satellites. All those problems that we are going to face. And as the density increases, regulators are going to become much, much more strict in managing these satellite. And therefore, AST-like satellite, to make AST-like satellites in large number is going to be a problem for Starlink. So constraint on AST as it expand. As I told you, regulatory and operation challenge. You can't, those big satellites, very difficult to manage. Few are okay, but if you have large number of them, it will be very difficult. And you need large number of satellites in order to generate more capacity, because the quantum spectrum will be just 10 megahertz. In low frequency band, you don't have large amount of spectrum. So you have less amount of spectrum. So if you have at least, if let's say in a particular area, if there are 100 people, then the bandwidth is going to get shared among those 100 people. Right? So there will be an issue as far as capacity of those satellites, unless you have large amount of those satellites orbiting in the Earth and offering services. So there will be scale limitation. Limited satellite means higher per unit throughput, but lower total volume. AST trades volume for bulk. Fewer satellites, but high performance per beam. Regulatory scrutiny plus physical constraint may cap expansion. Right? So summary table. This is the final slide. Summary table, AST versus Starlink for direct to mobile. Capability, native smartphone access. Yes, no hardware needed. Here also the same situation, because they are all operating in the commercial spectrum. And the regulation has to be, worked upon. There has to be a framework of regulation to manage interference, and there are cross-border interference. All those things have to be taken into consideration. Download speed, AST is higher because of the large antenna array, which I explained to you. This is lower because the antenna size is limited. Otherwise, the large number of volumes of satellite cannot be managed. Uplink capability, both are almost similar in nature, but because the satellite is very, very large, therefore, it has got better capability to catch the low, power signal, which emanates from the mobile, because the power is anyway low, 23 dBm, but it reaches as it's going to reach the satellite, which is 700 or 800 kilometers from the surface of the Earth. Because of the inverse square law, the powers are going to be very, very low. So you need a very, very large antenna array and a very, very high gain, receive gain, to capture those with very low power. It is going to be weaker because the antenna is a small. Spectrum type is same. Model focus, mobile coverage extension, and it's going to be broadband because it may have satellite which does dual purpose. Both for broadband as well as for SCS, means supplementary coverage from space for expanding the 4G and 5G network. Scale potential, high per satellite but fewer units, because it has got huge capacity per satellite, but you can't have large number of satellites. Here it can have many satellites, right? It can scale numbers, can somehow reduce the constraint on the capacity, on the bandwidth, on the the throughput can be overcome. The less throughput can be overcome with large number of satellites. Deployment challenge, light pollution, debris, power load. Compact design, much more scalable, and debris management is easy. Decommissioning of satellite is easy. So friend, that's all I wanted to basically do in this video, to give you a high level flavor as to why AST, what kind of advantage AST has compared to Starlink, and what kind of challenges AST is going to face in order to expand the number of satellites going forward, and the remarkable technology for AST, because of the large array, how they unfold in space is worth to see. It's really a great innovation, friends. Thank you, friends, for your time. And thanks for watching till the end. I hope that you found this video useful. And thanks for listening. And I'll come back with a new video on a new topic next time. Thank you very much.